Hello, this is Chris Ferrara, and this is Fatima Perspectives, a series of commentaries and discussions on the state of the Church in light of the message of Fatima. I've had on the show for several episodes now, and I'm happy to welcome back again the editor of Catholic Family News, my good friend and colleague, John Vennari.
Good to be here, Chris. Thank you.
John, we've been talking about the encyclical Laudato Si in previous episodes, and there's been a lot of negative commentary on Pope Francis's declarations in that encyclical. Let's talk about something positive and bring Francis into that positive aspect of our Fatima-related discussions and the message of Fatima itself, in particular the miracle of the Son, which is something we were discussing before the show today. Let's talk about that and bring Francis into the subject of Fatima.
Well, the point I always make with people is those who are willing to listen, that is, and that is that we have this tremendous miracle that was given to our time, predicted 3 months in advance. In August, she said, in October, I'll perform a miracle so that you will believe. September, in October, I'll perform a miracle. She said in July, too. 3 consecutive months, I will perform a miracle so that you will believe. So she's really treating us like rational creatures. She's not saying to Lucia, you tell them what I said, and if they don't believe you, that's on them. No, she's treating us the way our Lord treated us when our Lord said, so that you'll know that the Son of Man has power to forgive sins. I say to you, the man who's been crippled since birth, rise up and walk home. She treats us the way our Lord did. She appeals to our rational nature. She appeals to us in a loving way, and then she delivers. And she delivers this miracle of the Son. 70,000 people saw it. The press, the anti-clerical press, went out to laugh at it, to denounce it, to make fun of all these stupid people who think it was going to happen, and they had the integrity to report what they saw. So this is a tremendous reaffirmation of the faith and of the truths of the Catholic faith for the 20th century. As I said, Our Lady confirming the truths of the faith in the 20th century, especially those truths that would be denied at the end of the 20th century. And so I think that this is something that we should talk about more, because if the enemies, I mean, just suppose, I don't know, the Muslims or the Presbyterians or had this type of miracle to prove their case, I think they would be talking about it more than we talk about this miracle that we have to prove our case.
It's absolutely extraordinary. There's never been a miracle like it in the entire history of salvation. And that miracle, the miracle of the Son, places Fatima into a category by itself, authenticating it the way no other miracle has ever been authenticated. A miracle predicted in advance to
the day,
to make people understand that the message of Fatima is directed to all of humanity, that he who sees and believes will be benefited by the message, and that the message is designed for the salvation of every human soul. And that's why the message of Fatima doesn't go away. And what we've seen over the centuries, or rather the decades since the message of Fatima was revealed to the world, is that first and foremost, it is the popes themselves who keep alive the Fatima event. They keep bringing it up, don't they, John?
They can't help it.
Pope after pope.
It's too important. It's too central.
Which brings Francis into the discussion. One of the first things he did when he was elected was to ask the Cardinal Patriarch of Portugal to consecrate his entire pontificate to Our Lady of Fatima. Now that, to me, is rather mysterious, because we've seen nothing but strange doings, strange words and deeds during this pontificate for the last 2.5 years, and yet the first thing he does is ask that his entire pontificate be consecrated to Our Lady of Fatima. Under all of the titles by which she is known, he chose that one, bringing the message of Fatima front and center to the stage once again, and it's a pope once again who is doing so. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's something that has to be acknowledged. One thing that's interesting about Bergoglio is that when he was, I'm not trying to downplay what he's done, but when he was the head of the Jesuits, I think the spirituality in the 70s, he actually insisted that the Jesuits have benediction and say the rosary and pray litanies. Well, I mean, the Jesuits of the 70s, where did this guy come from? But Bergoglio has always put a lot of stock in the devotions of the people. And that the devotions of the people, if this is what they're doing in their homes, the litanies, the rosaries, then we priests should be there with them and doing it with them. And so I think Francis at least understands the strong worldwide devotion of Catholics to Fatima. and he's tapping into that. I don't say that not for political purposes. It's probably genuine. Who knows how he really sees things? But Fatima is too important, and this apostolate has done so much to keep the full Fatima message alive amongst people. The urgency of it, that I think he's responding to that, and I hope it wins special graces for him.
Well, that's one of the things that encouraged me at the outset of the pontificate. And lest anyone who watches these shows with these commentaries, which unfortunately have to be negative regarding what he's saying and doing, lest anyone think that I have an axe to grind, you need only search my name and the word gushing and the name Pope Francis. You will find the Sedevacantist websites mocking me because on the night he was elected, I was gushing over Francis. He seemed to be very humble and very Marian. I didn't know anything about the man or his background. I've come to understand that he is probably going to be one of the more problematic popes in church history, to put it mildly. And yet there is this element of popular piety that he seems to want to cultivate. Not only did he ask that his pontificate be consecrated to Our Lady of Fatima, he's indicated that if he's still alive in 2017...
And if he hasn't resigned.
Or he hasn't resigned due to old age, which he intimates that he will do, he would like to go to Fatima, make a pilgrimage there, joining Benedict and John Paul II and Paul VI, and in paying reverence to Our Lady of Fatima at the Fatima Shrine in Portugal in 2017, which is the 100th anniversary of the apparitions. Now, what do you make of that?
Well, I can only hope, I can only hope that he will go there, and by him doing it will encourage devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. There's a story in St. Louis de Montfort's book, in which the story, you might have known this, actually, Louis de Montfort actually mentions the king's name. There was a king who was not leading a very good life. He wasn't really a very good Catholic, but he had a beautiful jeweled rosary that he would wear on public occasions. He never said the rosary. He barely prayed himself. But the people would see that rosary on the king. What did they do? They start praying the rosary. So he's on his deathbed, and he's dying, and our Lord appears to him to judge him severely. And Our Lady appears and says, no, because he promoted my rosary in this manner, and so many of the people in the kingdom were praying the rosary because of him, he cannot be condemned.
That's very encouraging, actually, to an ordinary Joe like me.
And he saved his soul. It's in Louis de Montfort's book. I think it's around the 5th chapter. And so anytime, a number of these modern popes, especially this one we have now, very problematic. When I see him doing things for the sake of Fatima, when I think of all the simple souls, I don't mean that in a bad way, but the simple souls who will see that and maybe get a spark of devotion to Our Lady of Fatima, that gives me great hope for him.
And what a testament to the primacy of the Fatima event in the whole history of Marian apparitions, and indeed in the whole history of the Church, that even a pope, widely perceived by many to be rather reckless in his pronouncements and even modernist in his leanings, would be bringing up the subject of Fatima in such a prominent way. At the beginning, and apparently at the end of his pontificate, because by the year 2017, he'll be, 80 years old?
Yes.
And what's his wish? If God permits it, he says, if I still have breath in me, I want to go to Fatima for the 100th anniversary of the Fatima apparitions. And that centenary of the Fatima apparitions, I believe, is going to be a very significant and probably a very dramatic year for mankind as a whole. We've seen it before in the history of Fatima, and we're going to see it again, the centrality of that event for the life of the Church. For Fatima Perspectives, this is Chris Ferrara.